So, hello and welcome to the Perfectly Imperfect Duo podcast. We are doing an episode all about health anxiety. And tonight is a special episode because we have people joining us live. So, hello to those who are online with us right now. We're delighted to have you. We will just flow as we normally would on a podcast, and we'll chat for about 20 minutes, and then we'll invite people to ask questions. And when we get to that, we'll give you a shout and let you know how it works. But for now, Lily and I are going to do what we normally do, which is just have a conversation, one that's been completely not rehearsed or not even planned. We just wing it. We find that works best for us. So today we are talking all about health anxiety. One of the things that I would just like to mention, in case I forget about health anxiety before we kind of get into it, is that I honestly believe to a degree we all have a level of health anxiety, because if you really consider it, health is wealth. Okay, we know we need our health to be alive, actually, and to varying levels of that, but we know that health is important. So it would make sense that when things get stressful, when we're worried about something or we go into overthinking, that health is, if you like, a very easy one that is relevant to each and every one of us, and ultimately then leads to the fear of us not being here. So I just wanted to say that, because I think sometimes people worry about their health. They'll literally then jump on this idea that, oh my God, I've got health anxiety and it's really bad. I mean, actually, I think to a degree we can all worry about our health. I think there's an element of that that's really quite normal. So I just wanted to start by saying that. But so what are your thoughts, Lily?
Yeah, it's interesting that you start with that, because I definitely would have identified as having health anxiety, and I would have said, until you said that, I have zero health anxiety now.
Mm-hmm.
But what it is like before, I had really disordered anxiety and panic and OCD. And sure, I have anxious thoughts now, but the way that they come and they flow, I'll think of it as it doesn't impact me, but I have diabetes. And so how health anxiety, looks like for me today, it looks just more just like I'm a person at peace with living life, having a chronic health condition. And also my brain definitely chatters about my kids sometimes, but what's different for me today is I don't really give those thoughts much energy. So they flow. And so it's more effortless, like, as I said, my son's sick, so he's home. And so my brain might chatter, like trying to think, it was even, I dyed his hair. He wanted a pink hair. And
Wow.
like light brown hair, like light brown, dirty blonde hair. And so we bleached it, and then we dyed it like a light pink. And then afterwards, my brain was just chattering away, like, you have poisoned him now. And like, what if the bleach sunk into his body and whatever. And so sometimes my brain can chat away, if my kids get sick or, but what's different is that I just let those thoughts come and go. I'm not denying them and saying like, go away, I shouldn't be worried about it. But I know I can recognize the feel of those thoughts. And I think what it would have looked like before was I would have Googled, I would have been really worried. And just, I would have ruminated about it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, I think, sure, my kids' health is number one, and then my health. So my brain might have something to say, but it's a pretty, it doesn't show up with so much impact, so that's why I think I don't identify as having health anxiety, because it's just night and day, and sometimes I just forget, like I'll forget that there's even cancer, when before I would think, and my brain would be like, can't, just going over and over. And also I'll say this and then I'll be quiet. Being in the Three Principles community, I've just seen so many wonderful stories of people thriving and being happy despite having cancer, schizophrenia, multiple sclerosis. So I almost can't be afraid, because it's been such a wonderful exposure in the other way of people really talking about having these things that I used to dread and worry about. And And they're not saying, oh, I was happy to have cancer, but being happy despite having cancer. So if my brain makes something about me, because I do have a brain, if I'm hearing a story about somebody, my brain's like, what if that happened to you or your kids? My second thought is just this deep knowing that I'll be okay no matter what, even if it means cancer, even if it means death for me or my loved ones. It's this deep knowing that I'll be okay no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's partly why I wanted to say in the beginning that we can all have a tendency to have anxious thoughts about our health, because some of it very much links to our survival in this world. But like you say, that it doesn't need to be a problem. It doesn't need to be layered and escalate. And like you said, what you used to do that was different is you would feed it. So you would look to analyze the perceived problem that you felt you had, and then you were trying to control the future by, I suppose, arming yourself with all the information that was just frightening you half to death in the moment. And I think the other part to all of this is, like you were saying, people struggle to see, how can you be at peace with a health condition? How can you be at peace when you're unwell in some way? It's almost feels impossible. I had an insight a couple of years ago, and anyone in my membership will have heard me talk about this before, because it was quite a big insight for me actually in that moment, in that I was up in the middle of the night with really bad indigestion. And it was middle of the night, I was tired, so my level of consciousness was lower. So my thought, I was much, very easily grabbing onto every single thought that I had, problem solving. And I was wandering around the house on my own, just trying to sort of move and shift. So thinking, if I move around, this indigestion will move. I was probably making myself worse by getting tense and stressed. But anyway, it felt right for me to move around. And then I'd sit on the toilet, see if that had helped. Then I'd wander around. And I remember sitting on the toilet, sorry about this bit more information. I remember sitting on the toilet and in that moment thinking, I am making this worse. Because what I realized was, as much as it was really uncomfortable, the pain of the indigestion and heartburn, if anyone suffered with it severely, it is really painful. But what I realized in the moment, I was managing the pain, and we surprisingly managed the pain or the conditions. Like, we are built to weather the storm, and we tend to manage them really well. I mean, look, there's people giving birth every day, which is excruciatingly painful, and yet we do it, and we do it with grace, and we have a really high tolerance to stress on the body. And what I realized was, what was causing my suffering in that moment in the middle of the night with the indigestion wasn't the pain in that moment. I was managing it. It was my thoughts and the ideas about, but what if this gets worse? What if this pain becomes unbearable? What if I have to go to hospital? What if it's not indigestion and it's something else? What if? And I realized that's what was creating a really, really uncomfortable experience for me. And so when I realized that in that moment, still was in agony and pain and holding myself at my chest. But I made the decision to go and lie down in bed as best I could and just sit with the discomfort and see what happened. And I don't know how long it was, I can't really remember, but I did fall asleep eventually, and it must have passed. But the suffering in the moment was this illusion that I started to create of how much worse it could get. And I hear so many people talking about feeling unwell, or what if I get this health condition, or what if, and it's all a version that we make up, and we start to fear this version that we've created. And because the reality is, when we are faced, like you've said, Lily, with your diabetes, and my sister's also type 1, and I watch her sometimes in awe of how she manages such a difficult condition, and think, I couldn't cope with that. But the reality is, I would cope with it, because we adjust and we find a way. And so, for example, for someone that doesn't have diabetes, the thought of diabetes probably creates more fear in me than it does with you having it, because you adjust and and it becomes a part of your everyday existence that you find a way around. And it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on this, Lily. But the other thing to mention here is that when we are in a lower state of mind, a lower mood, our perception of all of this can feel more difficult. So I know I've mentioned hormones loads recently on Reels, because people have been asking me, but so full disclosure, I am hormonal at the moment. I am a day away, I think, from Mother Nature dropping on my doorstep. I have aches and pains. I have all sorts of things, and I'm feeling really quite sorry for myself. Now, I know that in 3 days' time, when my mood has lifted, these same aches and pains will not get in my way of my life like they are right now. And that's because of my state of mind and my mood. And because I've forgotten, in and amongst the chaos of overthinking it all, to be graceful with the low moments, and been interfering with it nonstop for 24 hours. So, and maybe now, here with you all on this podcast is the moment I'm going to be graceful with this until it passes naturally by itself. Let me just, oh, there we go.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. I know I muted myself in case there was traffic. Well, it might be interesting to talk about, maybe I'll share what helps me be graceful. And then if you think of anything, because also you ended it by laughing, and so being light about it and having, because right before, my cycle will start, it goes through phases. And I think that one has ended in the past, but I'll get so low. And it's funny because I'll say to sometimes my boyfriend, and sometimes it's about diabetes or something. I'll just feel so down about it. If it's also harder to manage. And then it's like, usually at the end of the day, a lower state of consciousness right before my cycle. And then, but sometimes I actually want to just go upstairs and just like go to bed early and kind of feel sorry for myself, which I'm fine with doing because I know I don't take my thinking seriously. But I came down one day and I said to my boyfriend, oh, you know what? I woke up this morning and for TMI and I'm bleeding. And he's like, yeah, no shit. And he's like, and he can just tell. He says, I start to, this might sound weird, not smell in a bad way, but he's like, oh, I can just tell. He can say like all these subtle shifts that start to happen. And it's not just my mood, but what he does is he doesn't take it so personally. And so I think what helps me be graceful, well, one, I know it's temporary. I think that's probably a huge thing that changed my experience of being human, is that it's temporary. And to your point, I can make it so much worse by just like thinking about it. And also there's nothing good or bad with thinking about it or making it worse. It's just, this is our experience. So it helps me be graceful. I'm trying to think.
Whilst you're thinking, one of the things that I find useful in the moment, particularly when I'm in a lower mood and I'm thinking, right, okay, if I think, well, what's wrong with me? Is there something wrong with my health? Do I need to check this? Do I need to check that? Is reminding myself that one of my favorite things to remind myself is that I cannot think my way to well-being.
Yeah.
So as much as my brain then wants to go down the route of what's wrong, what is it? Could it be this? Could it be that? That is me trying to think myself to feeling better, but we can't think our way to well-being. Well-being is when we're present and we're in that moment and we're at peace. It's not when we're caught up in our thinking, looking for answers and analysing. Now, that doesn't mean we can't go and get checked or go and check with the doctor or something, but actually no amount of anybody going on Google or sitting all night wondering what things might be changes any outcome. And so that's one of the things for me, is reminding myself of that I cannot think my way to well-being. And also, another quote that I love, which is an Einstein quote that I always say to people, is that you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it in the first place. So if you're currently, if you were sat there feeling really overwhelmed that you might get this or you might get that or you might get cancer, or what if this happens, what if that happens, that thinking is a problem. That thinking is creating suffering for you in that moment. It's creating an illusion of something that feels really scary. And we can't solve the problem with that same scary thinking.
Mm-hmm. Adding on to that, before finding the principles, I wouldn't have identified as having health anxiety. It wasn't such a common term then, but people would say I was a hypochondriac, but I really thought I knew more than everybody. And all my thinking was keeping me safe, because sometimes there was evidence. I'd be like, I detected this, I detected that. So I kind of was like, people would say that, but I would in a way think you are a fool and you are just not you don't know as much as me. because for me, some of my health anxiety was definitely orthorexia, like an obsession with health food and just health in general, a distrust of Western medicine. I would obsessively listen to all these like clean and toxin, and then I would even read like PubMed, like I was just so deep in it. And I really thought all my thinking was keeping me and my children safe. And somebody needed to worry to keep people safe. And to your point, we can't think our way to well-being. We don't need to think so much to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe. When I realized that, it was life-changing, because our brain is so great, but there's this greater intelligence that's powering our brain. When we are at peace, we will get all the insights we need. We really will. You don't have to, well, I'll just say what I've learned, because I don't want to be like, you don't have to, but you don't. We are just made of wisdom and common sense, the same wisdom that grew all of our children and then helped us heal from postpartum, and that, heals our cuts and our eyelashes and keeps us alive. When we are just at peace and present, it will say, hey, get this checked out. And we get all the guidance, and we actually will take better care of ourselves. But I didn't know that. I thought I needed to be worried and thinking and Googling and kind of obsessing and researching. And I haven't been in that state for probably almost 5 years. And in that time I had skin cancer. It was benign, but I had another thing that was also, I had a few health things that popped up. And so it's not like either you obsess and you worry, and now you catch something and you're a great advocate for yourself and your kids, or you just stick your head in the sand and you're like, there's a more carefree place in the middle where you're at peace. Some people I've worked with have diagnosed something that actually ended up coming true, and they'll use that as evidence of, well, how can I relax now? Because sometimes it was ignored. And I know I'm kind of switching, but I think it's kind of connected, where we are so free to do anything. If, where this is our experience, it's not good or bad to have health anxiety. It's what feels good and what allows you to live and feel good in this beautiful life. And I thought I had diabetes before I had diabetes. I had a tumor once that it was benign. I had skin cancer. I don't know. I've had a few things. And I could say, oh, I got to worry about, we can use our stories to point to all the reasons we should be worried and on guard, or we can see our resiliency. And also, we don't know that we caught that because of anxiety, or we would have just caught it being calm, and so I think when I hear people talk about that, I get it, but I really think to kind of open up, to be curious of, could I take great care of myself and my loved ones, being present and peaceful more of the time? And from what I've seen, and from all of my wonderful teachers and people that have had a variety of health conditions and taking care, yes, and you'll actually take better care of yourself, and you'll be better off in the long run, and you'll feel more happy. That was kind of a lot, but what do you think?
And the bit about, our wisdom, that we are much more likely to be in tune and listen to our body when we're calmer. When we're present, we are more likely to hear. Now, that's not to say that there aren't things with our health that go undetected, that the body doesn't show up. Well, there's sod all we can do about that. There's nothing we can do to control that. But actually, for the most part, our body really does show us and indicate when something's not right. And I know you will have heard me say this before, Lily, but my dad, who passed away 13 years ago from, well, maybe more than that now, I keep saying 13 years, it's probably more like 20. He spent the majority of his life, or certainly my life that I'm aware of, being convinced that he would have a heart attack. There was a history of heart problems in his family. He was a big drinker. He was adamant, so adamant that he had quite a lot of money, so he could afford to go to private healthcare. And so he would go and get his heart scanned, checked, at least once a year, if not more frequently as he got older, because he was convinced that was how he was going to die. He was so convinced that he missed so many signs and signals to say that his bowel wasn't right, and he ended up with bowel cancer. So again, it's kind of, we can become so fixated on this is what's going to happen, or what if this happens, or what if that happens, looking out for stuff, when actually if we just go quiet, and who knows, maybe even if he had been quiet, he might not have realized that he had bowel cancer, but he was so focused on the top half of his body that it was never even a question for him that there'd be anything wrong with the bottom half. And it would have cost him a few £100 extra to have the whole body scanned, but he was so convinced that it was going to be his heart that let him down, that he wasn't even interested in having the rest of his body scanned. And that's how adamant people can get, in the sense that they believe they're in control of their health via their thinking.
Yeah.
Yet we're not, we're just not, are we?
One, if we believe something strongly, we can sometimes think it must be true, like your dad, because I know for me, when I would feel something, it would feel like, this is agreement. Your thoughts are right. You're on to something. I just feel it in my bones. No. And I'm not discounting people's intuition, but like, it's wisdom and common sense has a different feeling,
Intuition's calm, isn't it? It's a knowing. It's not a, oh my God, I'm going to die tomorrow. Intuition calm is just like, I'm going to go and get that checked.
Yeah. And I used to really worry about stomach cancer and then like stuff with my brain, because when I was younger, I was very anxious. And so I had a lot of stomach aches and I always had headaches. It's so funny because I never have those anymore. But so my brain would say, oh my gosh, you're going to have like a brain aneurysm or brain cancer and a stomach cancer. And they seemed more real because I was so scared. In the past 5 years, I'd never think those are real. I mean, it's like, no, that's just not even, I don't know, but when I heard about your dad too, it's like all of it's from love, and so I think when we can have so much compassion for ourselves and we want to be alive and feel good and live a long, healthy life. And the same for our children. And I bring that up because I think I probably even had more health anxiety about my children. And I know people can have that about children or about pets. And it's just, you always talk about the unpredictability, uncertain, like that the brain hates, and it makes sense if the brain's like, let's obsess, let's think, let's scan, let's research. This is important. And so it's like, it's from love, but I see there is I hesitate to say better, but I do think there is a better way that will have you be more in harmony. You'll enjoy your life more and you'll still take great care of yourself and your loved ones, if not better. Yes. And I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's the power of thought that we often kind of can dismiss when it comes to health, because it's like health is so important. So these thoughts about health must be really important. It's like we categorize the importance of things and then we attach more meaning to those thoughts because this is an important topic. This is a serious topic kind of thing. So weirdly, I don't know, maybe because I thought we were doing this podcast, I had a dream last night that I was diagnosed with cancer. And it was a horrible dream because I was crying saying, I've got a baby, I can't be ill. And then I was like, how am I going to tell my daughter? And it was so vivid. I remember, so I must have woken up in the middle of the dream because it was so real, even though it wasn't real. But then I woke up that morning and probably for the first few hours, I just had this feeling of discomfort because of that dream. And I had to keep reminding myself, it wasn't real, it's a dream. It was a dream. But that is how powerful our thoughts and the energy, the dream was very visual. I can still picture it now. There was, I was talking to all my family. It was really brought to life in my dream. And so then it really felt like it impacted me. And it was only after my consciousness level lifted as the day went on and I woke up a bit that I was able to dismiss those thoughts. But I wanted to share that because dreams can show us how powerful thought is. So we know dreams aren't real, but they can still affect us the next day.
Yeah.
If we think about it. I can remember having a really bad dream once that my brother was pushed off a building and he ended up splattered on the floor. It was awesome. It was gruesome. I woke up and I burst into tears. And I'm like, I know this isn't real. This is a dream. But I was so upset because I'd absorbed and brought all of that thought to life in my dream and it became very visual. And that is the power of thought.
Yeah. because that's a thought's not just like black and white. We feel it. It's like we feel it with our senses, just as if, we think someone scary is walking behind us. Our heart can start beating. We can feel like we might be murdered. And then it's like a mom with a baby carriage, where, yeah, we can have a dream, or we can think a symptom means something and just cry and picture our death. And because our brain, it just brings it to life. We're like, oh my God, I'm dying. I have a baby. What's going to happen? And it's this gift of imagination, but it often doesn't feel like a gift, because it can feel like just these horrible scenes are playing out in front of us. And I know that sometimes people, sometimes if I have a dream, like once I had it's like last year, of one of my brother-in-laws who I love him, but we're not like so close. I don't talk to him all the time. And he died in my dream. And it was kind of like at his job that he would do. And I was thinking, I woke up, it felt, and I was like, should I call my sister? Like, but no, but like part of you is like, is this a premonition?
Yeah.
Like what if but I kind of what you were saying, it wasn't about me, but it was so real that I felt really shaky, probably until about noon. Yeah.
Yes, and the more that we see that happening in dreams and whatever else, that for me, it being in this conversation is what helped me realize that even thoughts about my health or death, or, I used to be so scared of death. I'm not scared of death anymore. And that might sound silly, but I'm just not, because I know that whatever happens. And again, I'm going to be all right. And so is everybody else. So it's realizing more and more that we don't have to buy in to that. We don't have to keep layering on thoughts on top of thoughts. That's why in basic terms, Googling symptoms is terrible, because what that does is that automatically layers the thoughts for you. You don't even have to try and layer the thoughts. You literally have reams and pages and links. You end up from one link to another. Before you know it, there's 5 possible conditions you've got, and they're all terrible, and you're not going to sleep that night. So that is just an example of layering and trying to come to some sort of conclusion as to what you think the problem is.
Yeah. And I'll say one thing, and then if we want, we can open it up. But I think for me, when you were talking about death, I also am not afraid of death. And I want to live a long life. And even more than that, I want my children to live a long life, and I want them to feel good. And I know that their souls are here to grow and develop, and their souls are like, it's only a good life if I live pain-free until 101. I don't even want to say it, because I do want my children to live a long life, but I know if God forbid something happened and they died young, their souls aren't going to be like, oh shit. Like their souls are like, that was a great life. Like, so that's what I know in my heart. And so I'm able to have like hope from within. It's very unconditional, where before it was very conditional. If I'd be Googling or thinking, but please, I just don't want it to be cancer. Or if it is cancer, I want it to be the okay cancer. I don't want it. And now I know I keep saying it, but it's not good or bad. Like if you are like, I don't care, I want to just obsess and I'm going to Google, we are free to do it. But there was like a year and a half ago after I had COVID, and it really impacted my diabetes. And there had been a bunch of other stuff, other people being sick, and my kids were about to start school. And it was still like early out of lockdown time. And so I still was not 100% back at health. And I thought, I really can't get sick. I can't. And I also thought I can't take it if anybody else gets sick. But my kids wanted to go back to school, but I was driving around, getting the last little bits of school supplies. And there was like a man at a grocery store, and he was so happy. And I was thinking like, how's anybody even happy? Because I kept thinking, I can't get sick. I can't take it. Like, I don't know what it would do to my health. And I was sitting in the parking lot, and I felt like I was at a crossroads, because I felt like I was going to have a panic attack, and it was a wake-up call. And I sat there and I thought, I could be totally justified to panic and to obsess. There's nothing wrong or right. But then I also felt like this other road, and that other road was, I had this deep peace that was like, I'll be okay if I get COVID. I'll be okay if I have no idea. It just fucks over my diabetes so bad. And it's like, and I just was like, I'll be okay. And then I was like, and I'll be okay if I die. I'll be okay if my kids get COVID, and I'll be okay if they die. Like, it wasn't like, I'll only be okay if none of us get COVID and my diabetes stays okay. Like, and I'm not saying that's what you have to get to, but that's more and more, it feels like I could go this way, or I could go to this way of like peace and kind of hope from the inside. And I didn't work hard to get there, but I had this peace. And then I went the rest of the back to school shopping, also feeling at peace. Like it was like this, before it had been resisting and conditional. And I lived a lot of my life like that, scared, resisting, conditional. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not how I want to live, because it caused me a lot of suffering and obsessing and thinking. And more of the time, I feel like I take that other road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think when you're saying that, and I can imagine there'll be people that will listen and they'll be like, how can she say I'll be okay if my kids die? Because on one level, we absolutely wouldn't be okay. On an emotional level, we wouldn't be okay. But actually, there's this deeper knowing that right now we're okay, and we always get to where we need to be, and whatever that okayness looks like, it might be an okayness that we never imagined possible or we never anticipated. And it's this, for me, and part of the reason why we find stuff like that so difficult and uncomfortable at times is because it's like we're conditioned to go, we have to worry about our kids, we have to worry about ourselves, we have to worry about our health. This is what we do. We've got to worry to protect ourselves. And yet all that's doing is not making 1 ounce of difference to the future of you or your children, because that doesn't currently exist. It just takes away from your current present moment. Yeah. So does anyone have anything? Is anyone brave enough to want to mute themselves and ask Lily and I a question, or pop something in the chat and we can pick something out to answer? Because maybe we can do more of these live ones, Lily, so that people can ask questions. But yeah, has anyone got anything they'd like to ask us, or anyone would like to unmute themselves, please feel free. I know because it's going on a podcast, you might not want to talk, but then again, you might not bother. No one will know your name.
Yeah, we do have something in the chat, but before then, also, if you used to struggle with health anxiety and don't, or you're on your way and you found things that help, or you just want to share insights that you've had, it doesn't have to be a question, but we'd love to hear from you, whatever your contribution is on health anxiety. But I do see that somebody asked, and if you type it in the chat, we'll just kind of keep it anonymous. Mm-hmm. How can I stop the safety behaviors? Okay. And would you clarify it for us on safety behaviors? I could guess, but if you would clarify what you mean.
Because this is the same person that said here that they have chronic health anxiety. It's literally consuming my life. And one thing I just want to do, and what I constantly do with people, is let's just reframe that for what we're actually saying is, you're experiencing a lot of anxiety around your health that feels so overwhelming to you that you describe it as chronic. And you said it's literally consuming your life. Your thoughts are consuming your life. Your thinking around your health is what is consuming and taking over your life. And I think it's important to see the difference, because there is a difference in that. When we recognize it is our thinking, because if we think, oh, well, I've got this thing now called health anxiety that's ruining my life, and it can feel very disempowering, but to see that actually what we're saying here is you have a lot of thinking around health, and it's consuming your life.
Also, you taught me this until now, to say, until now, I had a lot of anxious thoughts about my health, and it was consuming my life, because until now leaves room for hope, and this moment is fresh and new. Right after this podcast is a new opportunity. I'm not saying it for pressure, but who knows, you might have an insight now or today or tomorrow. And so I love, you taught me that of until now.
Yeah. And again, this here, the cycle of rumination.
Wait, but the person, she talked about safety behavior.
Oh, yeah, Google, there it is. Yeah, Googling, checking my vitals and reassurance from the doctor.
When I think of it, they're not safety behaviors. You might think that they are, if I'm Googling, I'm checking my vitals and I'm getting reassurance from my doctor, these are helping keeping me safe. And it might feel that way, but I think what I think maybe why you're asking this question is, I don't actually think these are helpful. I don't actually I don't think they're keeping me safe. I'm wondering if maybe you're realizing when I'm Googling, I get more scared and I get more confused. Same with checking my vitals. And I don't have health anxiety, but I have a continuous glucose monitor for diabetes. I can just mess myself up more if I look at that too much. And sometimes it's knowing, because then we can add on to it with our thinking. So, if we just said, stop Googling, stop checking your vitals, stop getting a reassurance, but it wasn't coming from an insight or a realization that you had, that wouldn't really be helpful. It's really powerful. Like when you realize that for yourself, you can see it where you are free to Google, but then you see, I really don't think it's working. I think it's making me more confused.
Mhm.
You have that desire to stop, and it's kind of actually easier because you've had that insight and that realization. And some of it is you might fall into a habit, and our habits are kept alive by our lizard brain, which is the most primitive part of our brain. And it doesn't think, great habit, let's keep it up. It just is like, oh, we're in a habit. So it might just be that you fell into a habit. But the great thing is sometimes when you have insights, you just naturally break the habit and you don't even realize it. But sometimes there's another thing where you want to go to Google and then you're like, wait, I think I'm not going to do it because it makes me feel weird, but you might feel a little uncomfortable for a little bit because you're not doing that habit. But when you know all that you're doing is feeling this uncomfortable energy, and it can come and it can go, the great thing is that our thoughts flow. So you might think, I want to Google it, and you might kind of effortlessly find, and I'm not talking about a replacement, like I need to replace it, but I never Google, but it's not like I white knuckle it. I just think Google, it's just a bunch of shit and I'm going to get more confused. So if I had something, I'm going to ask my doctor about it, but it's not this like anxious reassurance. I just think, well, I'm going to go there and just talk to somebody I trust. What do you think on the safety?
I think when you stop yourself Googling, after a bit, you realize how much better you feel. And therefore, it just doesn't occur to you to Google. And I think, if I was working with somebody with OCD or any form of like checking or safety, what you would see as safety behaviors, as Lily said, are not really about safety at all. We have thoughts that create feelings, and that gets uncomfortable. And then our brain creates the habit in order to take us away from that discomfort. And so trying to force ourselves to stop habits or stop the behaviors, if you like, without exploring the thought aspect and understanding more about that, what you probably find, not every time, but what you'll probably find is you'll just transfer one behavior to another. So we're not getting to the underlying need or desire to do it. We're just focusing on trying to force and stop the behavior. So for example, again, people find it really bizarre if I'm working with them on OCD that I'm not too interested in how often they're checking X, Y, and Z. I'm not too fussed about that because I know that's not where the answer lies. The answer lies in understanding more about your experience and the discomfort that leads to those behaviors getting less by understanding what creates it in the first place. So it's almost like we're looking at the wrong end of the stick, if you like. Someone shared here with which is nice, to found the insight about not thinking your way to well-being useful, i.e. we make ourselves worse while waiting to see if things are getting worse or waiting for an appointment. It has taken a while, but when I began to see this, the extremes of the anxiety have began to recede, which is wonderful. And then someone saying here, I find it helpful to think of intrusive and anxious thoughts as daydreams. I find it fascinating that we can dismiss the thoughts we have when we are asleep, but not when we are awake. It's okay, but not when we are awake. So I find it fascinating we can dismiss them while we're asleep, but not when we are awake. And that is simply because of our level of consciousness. We're not as invested in catching the thoughts. Our senses are not looking for problems to solve when we're asleep. It's just that level of awareness and consciousness. But what's wonderful is when we again understand more of that, and this is one of the 3 principles that both Lily and I teach or share, is mind, thought, and consciousness. And the consciousness part is about this, is realizing that the daytime is just another form of dream illusion that we create, that we feel it has more weight because we're more awake and aware of it.
Should we go back to the one on rumination?
Sure. Yeah. Let me just go up there. Okay. So Any tips on rumination? Well, what is rumination? For me, rumination is habitually looking for answers, and probably the reason it ends up in rumination is because we don't have the answers, so we just keep searching and thinking, maybe I'll find it over here, or maybe I'll find it over there, or maybe I'll find it speaking to this person, or maybe I'll find it on Google, or maybe rumination is for me continuously searching for an answer to a problem that is an illusion, and therefore there isn't an answer.
Yeah. And I agree completely. And I think when I notice rumination has a different feel. It doesn't feel creative. It doesn't feel, rumination can be like worry. It's like the more sometimes it feels like, oh, if I just think about, it has an anxious feel. It has that kind of hamster wheel, anxious feeling. And when we can see that feeling or see that we're ruminating, we can realize, oh, there's nothing to solve. And so I think for me, when I see that, I can just let my thinking be there. And sometimes for me, my brain has like picked up a momentum and it has these thoughts. And actually, sometimes I think to actually stop it would be too much energy. So sometimes, and I don't know, this might be a weird thing of my brain. It just like, it's ruminating and I can just let it be there. Like it's, because I know it's just a noisy brain. There's nothing to solve. But sometimes if I can't think of an answer, my brain might just keep chewing it over. So I just let it be there. So when I see ruminating for what it is, nothing really to solve. And when you had said, we can't solve our problems with the same mind that got us in there, that's what I think about ruminating. And I've seen it again and again. When I let it go, I open it up to my wisdom and my common sense, which is the wisdom that creates planets and grows babies and is responsible for zebras. That's got an answer, and we kind of have to be willing to go to nothing to let that, like, whatever problems we got, it's no problem for wisdom. It created, like, I don't even know, starfish and like bees and just like amazing stuff. It can pop up, but we can't hear it when we're ruminating. So I think I've seen it so deeply for myself, how unintelligent my thinking and my brain can be. And oftentimes what comes if I let it go is it's not a problem. Or I have an insight about it, or I just think I'm going to talk to somebody else.
I find myself laughing sometimes now when I realize, I'm like, oh my God, just that realization, like, why would I do this to myself? And I think the more you deepen your understanding, the easier that is to just see it. You have a moment of clarity where it's like, it just almost, for me, it's like just blows into a puff of fresh air. It's like, it's just suddenly gone because I realize it's not there in the first place, if that makes sense. And it's hard to explain, isn't it? But in such a short time like this, but it is the answer to all of these questions. The answer lies in the understanding of mind, thought, and consciousness, of understanding what it means to be human. And because the more we see how the human experience works and how phenomenal it is and how much it's working in our favor, we don't have to fear it in the same way. And when we can understand that thoughts are just thoughts, that we don't have to bring them to life, that it could be just the same as having a dream. And once you really start to see that, not be told it and try and convince yourself when you don't believe it, but really see it by exploring for yourself, it will just make the world of difference. I'm conscious that there's a few more questions there, but because we're on the podcast, we can't just keep going on and on because people will switch off from us. But if you haven't had your question answered, please send a message to myself or Lily, and we could split them between us and do a couple of reels or something. We'll answer your questions, so we won't leave you hanging if you just send those through. And then, we can do one of these again. We can even do another one on health anxiety if people find it useful. But if you're listening to the podcast and you would like us to do similar like this with people live on a different topic, then please send us a message, or we'll pop a post on Instagram asking for suggestions, because we would love your suggestions of what you want to hear more of and what you want us to talk about.
Yes. And we never do this on the podcast, but I'm going to take a minute and promote both of our offerings, because Sari, if you like our podcast and Sari has a wonderful membership, and you can say more about it, but I also have health anxiety course and a few other offerings on anxiety. So if you like us, we never do this, we never market. And you can tell me after if you're like, I hate that, why'd you say it? But I just wanted to say, Sari's membership is wonderful. Sari, if you don't know, and this is the first podcast, Sari is a person that introduced me to the 3 principles, and her videos on anxiety changed my life and gave me freedom from health anxiety and panic attacks and driving anxiety and intrusive thoughts and so much more, that some of it we actually didn't even go. Sari and I never talked about health anxiety. I came in talking about driving anxiety and panic. And then in that moment, stuff fell away. So Sari is wonderful, and check out her offerings and check out mine as well.
Absolutely. You know what? I love that, because I actually said recently on an Instagram live, often we don't shout about what we do enough, because people will go away maybe wanting more help and support and then not knowing because you don't say it. And you're right, you're absolutely right to do that. And the feeling is very, very mutual. I always feel so proud and so lucky that we have gone full circle in that you came to my membership and now we work together, which is just, it was like the vision that I had and always wanted, and you brought it to fruition for me. So thank you so much. So yeah, thanks for doing that, Lily. And yeah, so if you want us to answer any more of those questions, just pop us a message, because we're always looking for content ideas when our creativity runs dry, which isn't very often, but it does.
Yes.
So thank you for listening, everybody. Thanks, Lily.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for coming live, everybody.
Bye. Lots of love.
Bye.